Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time we're taking a look at Minority Report. It's a film that's visually stunning, but also dives into these really complex questions.
Oh, yeah, about security freedom.
Right, exactly. And the ethics of futuristic technology.
Definitely. And it manages to do all of that while still being a really thrilling sci-fi film.
Exactly. So for those who haven't seen it, the film is set in 2054, and in this world they've basically eliminated murder.
Can you imagine?
I know it's kind of crazy to think about,
It is.
but they do it with this system called pre-crime.
Okay.
And it's powered by these three mutated humans who they call precogs.
Tree cogs, I've heard of those.
Yeah, and they can see violent crimes before they occur.
That's wild.
It is. But here's where things get really interesting. The head of pre-crime, John Anderton, he's suddenly accused of a future murder.
Whoa! So the very system he's in charge of is predicting he's going to commit a murder.
Exactly. And that's just one of the many things we'll be exploring today. We'll be diving into the ethical dilemmas surrounding the precogs, the implications of the surveillance technology in the film,
Oh, okay.
and the whole philosophical debate about free will versus determinism.
Sounds intense.
It is. And we'll also examine the allure and potential dangers of all this advanced technology and, of course,
Yeah.
the moral gray areas that the film presents.
Lots to unpack.
I'm
Me
excited.
too. So let's start with the precogs. These individuals, they have this incredible and also kind of unsettling ability to see these future crimes,
Right.
but they're also treated as tools, kept isolated and basically deprived of normal lives.
It's really sad when you think about it.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it really makes you think about how far we're willing to go in the name of progress or safety.
Yeah.
You know, the film really highlights how much the precogs are suffering, both physically and mentally. And it raises the question,
Mm-hmm.
can a society truly be just if it's built on the suffering of a few, even if it means preventing violence? Such a good point. And the film has these really powerful visuals that show us how dehumanizing this system is. Like that scene where Anderson goes into the precog chamber,
Oh, yeah.
and it's this sterile, almost womb-like environment. And the precogs are just floating there in this milky fluid,
It's bizarre.
muttering these fragments of visions. They're completely cut off from any kind of normal life.
It's such a powerful image, you know? It really drives home the idea that their individual identities are completely erased.
Yeah.
They're just serving this one purpose.
Right. And speaking of chilling,
Mhm.
we have to talk about the surveillance technology in Minority Report.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty scary.
It is those spider scanners that can identify anyone just by their retinas. It's like Big Brother on steroids.
Everywhere you go, they're watching.
Exactly. Every move you make is tracked and analyzed.
You know, it's interesting because this technology, it doesn't seem that far-fetched anymore.
You're right. Especially with all the advancements in facial recognition and data collection these days.
Right. I mean, the film is like a warning about what could happen if we're not careful. We could end up in a world where our every move is scrutinized.
Yeah, all in the name of security. It's a slippery slope.
Hmm.
Where do we draw the line?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is between safety and freedom. And are we really willing to sacrifice our privacy for this idea of security?
Those are some really tough questions to answer.
They are, and the film definitely doesn't give us any easy answers.
No, it doesn't.
But it forces us to confront those uncomfortable truths. And then the film throws another curveball at us.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
The whole concept of predestination. Because it introduces these minority reports.
Oh, I see. So it's not always a sure thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It turns out the precogs don't always agree.
Interesting.
Sometimes there's a different vision, a different possible future.
Okay, so that raises a big question. If the future can be predicted, but there are different possibilities, does free will even exist?
Right, or are we all just puppets in this play? Even if there are a few alternate endings.
Mind-blowing.
It is. And then we see Anderton's fight to escape his fate,
Right.
which becomes this bigger battle against this idea that our destiny is set in stone.
It's like he's wrestling with this question,
Yeah.
and we're wrestling with it right along with him.
Exactly. And here's another layer to it. The pre-crime technology, as advanced as it seems, it's also flawed.
I was going to say, there's got to be some kind of catch.
There is. It can be manipulated,
Oh, wow.
especially by those in power. It makes you wonder, who's watching the watchers?
Right, because if they can predict crimes,
Yeah.
who's to say that they're not manipulating the system for their own benefit?
Exactly. And that's one of the most important things to remember. We can't just blindly trust any system. especially one that claims to be perfect.
Definitely power can be a dangerous thing, especially when it's in the wrong hands.
Absolutely. And that's something we see play out with Anderton.
Oh, how so?
He starts out as this staunch defender of pre-crime.
Yeah.
He really believes in the system.
Yeah.
But then when he's the one being hunted, he becomes the system's biggest critic.
That's a pretty big shift. What do you think causes that change?
Well, I think it's a combination of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's suddenly in a position where he has to question everything he thought he knew.
Right. He's experiencing the flaws firsthand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's also about his own personal journey. You know, he's realizing that the system he devoted his life to is capable of being corrupted.
That's a tough pill to swallow, especially when you've dedicated your life to something.
It is. It's
He's
like
got
he
it.
goes through this awakening.
It's like his eyes are suddenly opened.
Right. And he sees the system for what it really is.
Yeah. And that's such a powerful part of the film,
Right.
because it shows us that even those who are in power can be wrong, and that it's important to always question authority.
Absolutely. And before we move on, we have to talk about the visuals in the film. I mean, the holographic displays,
Oh, yeah.
the personalized advertising, those sleek self-driving cars. It's all so futuristic.
It's like a tech lover's dream.
It is, but
Yeah.
with a slightly dystopian twist.
Definitely Spielberg did an amazing job of creating a world that's both visually stunning and thought-provoking.
You're right. It's like he captures that tension between our fascination with technology and the potential dangers that come with it.
It's like a double-edged sword.
Exactly. Technology can be seductive. It offers solutions to so many of our problems.
Right. But we can't let it control us.
We can't.
Yeah,
And that's something the film really makes us think about. It encourages us to be critical
definitely.
of our relationship with technology, to ask ourselves not just, can we do this, but should we do this?
That's a crucial question, especially as technology continues to advance.
It is. And that brings us to another important aspect of the film, the fact that it doesn't give us easy answers.
Oh, yeah. It's not black and white.
Not at all. The pre-crime system,
Yeah.
even though it's flawed, it has eliminated murders.
So is it really a bad thing?
Right. And is Anderton truly guilty even though he hasn't committed the crime yet?
That's a tough one.
Is. The film really makes us grapple with these ethical dilemmas. It forces us to consider all sides of the issue.
And that's what makes it so thought-provoking. It's not just a simple good versus evil story.
No, it's not. It's about the choices we make,
Right.
the future we're creating, and the fundamental questions about humanity
Yeah.
that technology forces us to confront.
And it's really interesting how the film uses Anderton's journey to highlight those questions. You know, he goes from being this totally devoted follower of the system, almost robotic, you could say.
Yeah, to someone who completely flips his perspective, questioning everything he once believed in.
Right. It's such a dramatic change.
It really is.
Yeah.
And you can't help but feel for him as he's trying to clear his name,
Yeah.
while also trying to figure out the truth about the system that he helped create.
Feels like his whole world is turned upside down.
Yeah, it is. He goes from hunter to hunted.
Exactly. Forced to experience the very system he was a part of.
Right. It makes you think, if someone told you were going to commit a crime, what would you do?
I don't even know.
It's hard to even imagine, right?
Yeah. It is. I mean, would you just accept it? Or would you fight back, even if it meant questioning everything you thought you knew?
I think that's the core of Anderton's struggle.
Definitely. And the film does a great job of showing the emotional impact of all of this.
Yeah, he's constantly looking over his shoulder, trying to stay one step ahead.
It's like he can't trust anyone.
Right. And then you have those scenes like the one in the mall where he's trying to avoid the spider scanners.
Oh my gosh, that scene is so intense.
It is. The way they use those personalized ads, it's like the technology is taunting him.
Yeah. And it just shows how suffocating it would be to live in that kind of world where you have zero privacy.
You're right. It's like the walls are closing in on him.
But there's also this weird, almost attractive side to this technology, right?
It's true. It's sleek and futuristic.
Exactly. I mean, the holographic displays, the way they interact with computers, it's all very cool.
Yeah, Spielberg does a great job of showing both sides of it.
He does. It's appealing and unsettling at the same time.
Like a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the film so interesting. It doesn't just condemn technology outright.
Yes.
It explores the potential and the risks.
Right. It's like a cautionary tale.
It is.
Yeah.
It reminds us to be careful about the tools we create and to think about the consequences.
And to use technology responsibly.
Exactly. Because it can be used for good or for bad.
And one thing that really struck me is that even with all this dystopian stuff, the film still offers a glimmer of hope.
Oh, how so?
Well, it suggests that even in this world, people still have agency.
Meaning they can still make their own choices.
Right. Even if it seems like their fate is already decided, they can still fight for what they believe in.
That's powerful.
It is. And I
Yeah.
think it's a really important message, especially in a world where technology is advancing so quickly.
It's a reminder that we're not just pawns in some grand scheme. We have the ability to shape our own future.
We do. And that brings us back to the idea of the Minority Report.
Oh, right. The dissenting vision from the precogs.
Exactly. It shows that even in a system that seems so certain,
Yeah.
there's always room for doubt, for alternative possibilities.
It's like a reminder that we should always be questioning things.
We should. And that we should be open to different perspectives, because there's never just one answer.
I like that. It's a good message to keep in mind. It really makes you think about what it would be like to actually know the future.
It does.
Mhm.
And how heavy that knowledge would be.
It's like, if you were given the choice, would you really want to know what's going to happen?
Yeah. And what would you do with that knowledge? The film explores both the good and bad sides of that.
Definitely. I mean, being able to stop violent crimes, that's a huge positive.
It is. But as we see in the film, that power can be abused pretty easily.
It can. It could lead to a world where people's freedoms are taken away,
Hmm.
all in the name of security.
Exactly. And on a personal level, think about how messed up it would be to know your own fate.
Oh, yeah. To see yourself committing a crime that you haven't even consciously decided to do yet.
It's mind-boggling.
It really is. Could you live a normal life with that hanging over you?
I don't know. I think that's what makes Anderton's journey so fascinating. He's fighting against this predetermined path, trying to figure out who he really is.
It's a really compelling story,
Right.
and it's what makes this film more than just a typical sci-fi action movie.
You're right. It really sticks with you.
It does. It makes you question your own ideas about free will and justice.
And the role of technology in our lives.
Exactly. Spielberg did a great job of balancing those big ideas with a really entertaining and visually impressive film.
He did. He created a world that's both familiar and unsettling.
And that's what's so great about these kinds of stories. They make you think. They challenge your perspectives.
They do. And they spark conversations.
Yeah.
So we want to hear from you. Have you seen Minority Report? What did you think? Did it change how you think about technology or privacy or even free will?
Head over to our social media pages and let us know. We'd love to keep this conversation going.
Because the future isn't set in stone. We all have a role in shaping it. And it starts with discussions like these.
That's a great point. We
Yeah.
can't just sit back and let things happen.
We can't. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.